The parents of Harry Dunn, who died near an RAF base in Northamptonshire in August 2019, have been speaking at a damages claim against their son's alleged killer in America.
The 19-year-old was knocked off his bike by a car driven by Anne Sakoulas outside RAF Croughton.
She later left the country, claiming diplomatic immunity. The 43-year-old was then charged with causing the teenager's death by dangerous driving after her departure from the UK, but an extradition request was rejected by the US State Department in January last year.
Well, we can speak to Charlotte Charles, Harry's mother, and Rad Seeger, her spokesperson. They both join us live from New York. We're really pleased that you are joining us. Thank you so much. Charlotte, can I start with you, and can I ask you to take us back to the beginning and describe what happened the night you lost your son and what you've been through since?
The night we lost Harry, it's always at the forefront of your mind. We know the pain and the suffering that he went through on the roadside before he was sedated. His injuries were terribly severe. There was barely a bone in his body not broken. He had major internal organ damage, which led to his death. We, with all due respect to Harry, it should have been a straightforward road crash. She was on the wrong side of the road. We've been told that he was riding perfectly safely that evening. And when I promised my son and kissed him on the forehead after he died, I promised him I would get him justice. I didn't expect that it would be as hard as this. I didn't expect it to go on for so long. And here we are, 22 months later, and we're still fighting, but I'm not giving up.
Let me move to Rad Seeger. Rad, you're assisting Harry Dunn's parents. Tell us why Charlotte is in America and the case she's bringing and the evidence that she's given while she's been there.
Sure. Good afternoon, Liam, and thanks for having us on your new channel. There are two legal cases ongoing at the moment, and you referenced the criminal case against Anne Sakoulas, which is proceeding back in London. And at the G7 summit a few weeks ago, the two leaders of the UK and the US announced that the path had been cleared to criminal justice. And we know that the Crown Prosecution Service are now working on how that is going to happen. So we are no longer talking about if she's going to face justice in England, but when and how. So that's been the major development on the criminal side over the last couple of weeks. But we've also brought a civil claim for damages, what you and I ordinarily might call a personal injury case. Here it's described as a wrongful death case for civil damages. And the parents decided to bring that case against her in the United States because she wasn't coming back to the UK and she based herself in Virginia. And it was a very novel attempt to bring that sort of case. I'm not sure that there's any precedent for it, but the judge in Virginia allowed it to stay here in the US, despite the Sakoulas trying to get the claim dismissed and kicked back to England. That was not allowed. So the development this week is that following that major court victory, which was in March, the parents were required, it was a legal obligation for them to come out to Virginia to give a deposition. And that is giving evidence under oath, but not in a court. So it was in the Sakoulas' lawyer's office, and it's effectively a cross-examination of the evidence. So Tim and Charlotte were there all day yesterday. We cannot go into the detail of it legally. We're not allowed to discuss what happened yesterday, but what we can say is that both Tim and Charlotte, who, as you can imagine, they haven't slept for about 3 days now. We've been so busy. They are heartbroken and bereft. They have traveled in the middle of a pandemic, and it is impossible to get into the United States at the moment. There is a total travel ban, so we had to get a special exemption for that. And yet they performed admirably, as I understand it, and as you can imagine, it must have been a huge ordeal for them, but basically talking about Harry, what happened, and the impact that his loss has had on them as they pursue that claim for civil damages.
Charlotte, the campaign for justice has been a long and difficult one, and Rad has just explained the latest instalment of that. Have you been supported? Has your hand been held by the government and by the Foreign Office as you have embarked on the campaign for justice?
Now, there's a question, isn't it? Certainly at the beginning, no. We tried desperately to reach out to the UK government and the US government before we went public. So very, very early on in October of 2019, we were trying to gain some discussions with them, some communication, and we were completely ignored. Rad tried his absolute hardest and we were completely ignored. Without going to the media and without having the support from you wonderful people and the people in the UK and a lot of supporters in the US, the governments did finally start to engage with us. But it took a lot of hard work, a lot of determination, and a huge effort on Rad's part to open so many different paths to dialogue. And to this day, we've got dialogue ongoing with both, senior officials, both in the UK and in the US. But without Rad coming along and plugging a hole and being a family friend for 18 years and scooping us up and carrying us along in our deepest, darkest days, at the beginning especially, we would have been lost. We would have had nowhere to focus our determination to get this justice.
Charlotte, you and Tim Dunn, Harry's father, clearly traumatic, post-traumatic stress disorder, etc., etc. Our heart goes out to you. Now, lawyers for Anne Sakoulis have said that she is prepared to do community service. She is prepared to, quote, make a contribution to Harry's memory. What do you want to happen to Anne Sakoulis? You don't strike me as a vindictive person at all, if I may say so. You strike me as a very rational mum trying to do her best for the memory of her beloved late son. So what outcome do you want here, Charlotte?
Liam, I'll deal with that if I may, because we're getting into legal territory. The family's simple position is, we are victims of a very serious crime, but we are not the prosecution. We are not the judge, and we are not the jury. And in our country, back in the UK, it's up to those authorities to determine the outcome of any legal proceedings. Victims of crime don't ordinarily get to say, well, yeah, okay, you can go and do community service, or go and scrub graffiti off walls for a couple of 100 hours. That's not the way our system works. So what I've always tried to encourage this family to do is to make the case that you do not get to kill somebody and walk away, and you have to face the justice system. You have to get to the starting block. What happens to Mrs. Sakoulis after that is nothing we can control, and there's nothing that we can do really to affect that, because she may ultimately be acquitted of all charges. And let's remember, she's innocent of anything at the moment. She's charged with causing Harry's death by dangerous driving, but she's entitled to a fair trial. So what I don't want the family thinking, or our wonderful supporters, is this cannot be a campaign to jail her or to get her to scrub graffiti off walls. The campaign is about, you don't get to kill somebody and walk away. Engage with the justice system. We have the fairest legal system in the world. If anything, we all complain about how lenient it is sometimes. And then go through the process. Let the jury hear the evidence and either convict or acquit. And then it's up to the judge in our country to impose any sentence. So it's unfair to ask this family, and I just, it's not something that we want to get involved in, to say, yeah, okay, well, we can live with community service. And equally, it's not our place to say she must do jail time. The simple fact is, if you and I had done this, Liam, this would be at the bottom end of the range of possible sentences. There are sentencing guidelines in the UK. and it would be about a 2-year jail sentence. And there's far too much carnage on our roads in the UK, and we do not tolerate bad driving. And although it's not intentional, that's what the lawmakers have deemed as an appropriate sentence. But we have no wish to get involved in that process. You just have to get to the starting block, and then let's see what happens after that. So sorry for taking that over.
Absolutely.
But as you know, the parents don't really get involved in the legal stuff. So I hope that helps.
Charlotte, where have you got the strength from to carry on this campaign? It's remarkable. There must have been some seriously dark days since 2019. What gives you the strength, or who gives you the strength to carry on this fight?
My love for Harry. He was my boy. I gave birth to him, carried him, saw him through growing up, saw him becoming the most wonderful young man who had direction. He knew what he wanted from life. He knew what he was going to go on to study. His passion for riding, his sheer determination to achieve anything that he set his goal to. And if he had that determination, drive, and that passion to achieve anything that he set his mind to, then I could certainly do it as well. I've made that promise. There's not a promise that I've ever made to either of my boys that I've broken. This is not going to be the first one. That desire and that burning in the pit of your stomach just doesn't go away. It's constantly there. The pain is constantly there. I've said many times, and there's no other way to describe it, the blood running through your veins many days just feels like lead. You know, it is so difficult some days lifting one foot off the ground and putting it in front of the other. And there are many days where I haven't got out of bed, and there are many days where I haven't known how to carry on, but I've got a huge support network around me. Reached out to my GP much earlier on this year. I needed help. I'm on some medication that is helping me feel a bit stronger, because I'm not giving up. Us parents are not going anywhere until this justice has been done.
Charlotte, Anne Sakoulis is a mother as well. I don't want to ask you any questions that are legally contentious in any way. All I would say to you is, how determined are you to carry on with this campaign to get justice for Harry?
Extremely. You know, we are not going to stop until some justice is done. I understand she's a mom, and that's why I don't understand how she could walk away from this and not take full responsibility. She needs to be held accountable, whatever that might look like. She needs to be held accountable. I know for sure if I'd have done that, the first thing I would have done is contact the grieving parents and apologise. I would hold myself accountable, and I would get myself to the starting block of the UK justice system. It's just something she's got to do. It's the right thing to do. The wrong thing to do was to walk away.
It's been an honour, really, to speak with you. We're full of admiration for the strength that you have and the battle that you are fighting. It cannot be an easy one. Remarkable mum. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thanks for having us.